until a man from the countryside changed her destiny. She couldn't move her legs. Amina had always loved the little things in life. She grew up in a small city, where mornings smelled of fresh bread from the baker's shop and evenings were filled with the laughter of children playing in the narrow streets. From the time she was a little girl, she had dreams bigger than the world around her. She loved reading stories about people who faced challenges and rose above them, and she often imagined herself traveling, exploring new places, and doing something meaningful with her life. Her parents, hardworking and kind, encouraged her curiosity. They always told her that the world was full of possibilities, as long as she had courage and determination. Amina was known among her friends as a lively and cheerful person. She had a bright smile that could light up a room and a heart that cared deeply for those around her. She was independent, organized, and always ready to help others. On weekends, she would take long walks in the park, feeling the wind on her face and watching the sunlight filter through the trees. She loved feeling her legs move freely, running or walking without thinking about limits. These small freedoms gave her a sense of happiness and control over her life, and she cherished them deeply. Life for Amina seemed ordinary, yet full of promise. She was studying at the university and working part-time at a small cafe to save money for future plans. Her friends often teased her for being so responsible, but she never minded. She believed that discipline today would give her freedom tomorrow. Every day she balanced her studies, work, and personal time with a delicate rhythm, and she did it with grace and patience. Then, one ordinary day, everything changed. It was a sunny afternoon, and Amina was returning home from her classes. The streets were busy, filled with cars honking and people walking quickly to reach their destinations. Amina liked to take a shortcut through a quiet lane lined with old trees, where she felt calm and at peace. She was thinking about the essay she needed to finish and the work she had to complete that evening when suddenly, a speeding car came around the corner. She barely had time to react. The sound of screeching tires and the sudden impact left her world spinning. When Amina woke up, the room was quiet except for the low hum of machines and the occasional footsteps of nurses. Panic and confusion filled her mind. She tried to move her legs but felt nothing. Her heart raced and tears filled her eyes. The doctor's words were soft but firm. She had suffered a spinal injury, and the chances of walking again were uncertain. Amina could not move her legs. At that moment, her dreams, her independence, and the simple joys of walking, running, or feeling the ground beneath her feet seemed to vanish into thin air. The days after the accident were some of the hardest she had ever faced. She lay in the hospital bed, staring at the ceiling, overwhelmed by feelings she had never known before. Anger, frustration, sadness, and fear mingled together, creating a storm inside her. She could no longer perform even the simplest tasks without help. Eating, bathing, and moving from one place to another became challenges she had never imagined. Amina felt trapped in a body that no longer obeyed her will, and she wondered if life would ever feel normal again. Her family tried to comfort her, but their own worry and helplessness often made her feel even more isolated. Friends visited for a few days, offering words of encouragement and small gestures of care, but soon, life went on, and the visits became rare. Amina began to feel invisible, as if her existence had been paused. She hated asking for help, but she had no choice. Even the simplest things required assistance. Pride and independence that she had carried all her life now seemed like distant memories. Yet, despite the despair, small sparks of resilience remained. Amina noticed them in the quiet moments when a nurse smiled at her, when a friend sent a message to check on her, or when she herself managed to lift her hands to hold a book or write a note. These tiny victories reminded her that she was still alive, still capable of feeling, still able to think and dream. But the path forward seemed long and uncertain, and each day felt like a battle she was not ready to fight. In her mind, Amina often replayed the life she had before the accident. She remembered running along the beach during vacations, feeling the cool sand under her feet, and listening to the waves crash against the shore. She thought of quiet evenings spent reading in her room, or laughing with friends during simple gatherings. These memories were bittersweet. They reminded her of everything she had lost, but also gave her a reason to hope that joy could exist again, even in a different form. As weeks turned into months, Amina's hospital stay ended, but her challenges continued. She returned home, where her parents had adjusted the house to accommodate her wheelchair. Even so, life felt confining. Stairs, narrow hallways, and crowded markets became obstacles she had to navigate with caution. She faced the indifferent stares of strangers and the awkward pity of acquaintances. Every day tested her patience and strength, and there were moments when she wanted to give up entirely. Despite everything, Amina was not ready to surrender to despair. She found solace in writing her thoughts in a journal, expressing feelings she could not voice aloud. She discovered online communities of people with similar experiences, where stories of courage and determination inspired her. Slowly, she began to understand that her life had changed, but it was not over. The dreams she held might need to be reshaped. The paths she wanted to walk might be different, but hope could still exist in small, steady steps. Even in her darkest moments, Amina could feel a spark of curiosity and life within her. She began to watch the world from a different perspective, through the eyes of someone learning patience, resilience, and the quiet strength that comes from facing hardship. Every small movement, every new skill she learned became a victory. Every kind word from a visitor, every message from a friend reminded her that she was not alone. And yet, Amina knew that something was missing. She longed for someone who could understand her struggle, who could see beyond her wheelchair, beyond her injury, to the person she still was inside. She wanted encouragement, guidance, and perhaps a little bit of hope that life could still hold surprises and new beginnings. She did not yet know that such a person would enter her life in the most unexpected way, changing her destiny forever. Life, after the accident, was nothing like Amina had imagined. Every day felt heavier than the last. Even though she had returned home, away from the hospital walls, freedom seemed like a distant memory. Her house, once a place of warmth and laughter, now felt like a space full of reminders of everything she had lost. The small adjustments her parents made, ramps, wide doorways, and a wheelchair, helped her move physically, but they could not remove the walls she felt growing inside her heart. Amina often sat by the window in her room, watching people pass by on the street. Children ran freely, couples held hands, and friends laughed as they shared stories. She longed to be among them, to feel the wind on her face, to walk without thinking about obstacles. But her reality was different now. Even leaving the house felt like a challenge. The world outside seemed large, unpredictable, and unwelcoming to someone like her. Her parents did everything they could to keep her spirits high. Her mother prepared her favorite meals and stayed by her side during the day, while her father helped with exercises and encouraged her to keep trying to regain strength. They were patient, loving, and tireless in their support. Yet, Amina could not help feeling guilty. She hated seeing the worry in their eyes and the effort they put in just to help her live a life that felt limited. She began to withdraw, speaking less and smiling less, retreating into a quiet bubble of frustration and sadness. Friends who had once been close gradually drifted away. Some visited at first, unsure how to act around her, then slowly stopped calling or dropping by. Amina understood people were busy, lives moved on, but the emptiness of their absence weighed heavily on her. She realized that not everyone could see beyond her wheelchair. Not everyone could understand that she was still the same person inside, just living in a body that refused to cooperate. Loneliness crept in like a shadow, settling quietly in her heart. Daily life became a mix of struggle and small victories. Getting out of bed, moving to the bathroom, or simply adjusting her position took effort and patience. Each task that had once been natural now demanded focus and energy. Even simple things like brushing her hair, holding a cup, or turning a page in a book reminded her that life had changed forever. Yet, within these challenges, small moments of pride emerged. When she managed to feed herself, write a note, or participate in a conversation without relying heavily on others, she felt a flicker of hope. Despite the difficulty, Amina refused to give up entirely. She began exploring ways to keep her mind active. Books became her refuge. She read stories of courage, resilience, and triumph over adversity. She learned about people who had faced unimaginable obstacles yet found ways to live meaningful lives. These stories sparked a faint glimmer of determination. If others could find hope in hardship, maybe she could too. Still, even with books and online communities, Amina faced deep emotional struggles. She hated asking for help. She hated the pity in people's eyes. Every moment when she could not perform a task on her own reminded her of how much she had lost. She felt trapped, not only by her body but also by the fear that her dreams were slipping further away. She had wanted to finish her studies, travel, and experience life fully, but now those goals felt distant and almost impossible. Therapy sessions were a mix of hope and frustration. The physical exercises were painful, sometimes exhausting but necessary. The therapist encouraged her to push her limits, to focus on small improvements rather than the entire journey. There were days when Amina felt proud of herself, like when she managed to move her toes or balance herself slightly in the wheelchair. But there were also days when despair returned with full force, making her question if the effort was even worth it. Isolation became her constant companion. Even in her own home, Amina felt alone. She spent hours staring at the walls, thinking about the life she had before, the dreams she had nurtured, and the plans she had made. She missed the freedom of spontaneity, going for a walk, meeting friends without planning every detail, laughing without restriction. The world outside continued its motion, indifferent to her struggles. She realized that while her body had been confined, her mind was free. But freedom in the mind alone could not fill the void in her heart. Despite the darkness, small sparks of encouragement began to appear. A teacher from her university reached out, sending notes and reminders that Amina's place in the academic world was still waiting for her. A distant cousin called to check in regularly, offering stories of life beyond the city and gentle encouragement. Online communities of people with disabilities shared experiences, advice, and motivation. For the first time in weeks, Amina felt that maybe, just maybe, she could find a way to live a life worth living. Even as hope grew, fear remained. The thought of never walking again haunted her. She struggled with the idea that her independence had been replaced by reliance on others. She wondered whether people would ever see her beyond her disability. The world had changed for her in ways she had never imagined, and each day was a reminder that life could be cruelly unpredictable. But the universe has a way of introducing change when it is needed most. One evening, while attending a small local event in the community hall, Amina noticed a man helping organize volunteers. He moved with calm determination and had a kind smile that seemed to reach his eyes. There was something different about him, not pity, not forceful encouragement, but a gentle warmth that made the room feel lighter. She didn't know it then, but this man, Hassan from the countryside, would play a role in changing the course of her life. Hassan had grown up in a rural village, where life was simple but hard. He had faced challenges of his own, physical labor from a young age, limited opportunities, and the responsibility of caring for his family. Despite the difficulties, he carried himself with humility, patience, and a quiet confidence. He understood struggle not as a punishment but as a teacher. His presence in the community event was natural, unassuming, and yet, when he looked at Amina, it felt as though he saw more than her wheelchair. He saw her courage, her pain, and the spark of life she had not yet abandoned. For Amina, it was the first time in months that she felt seen, not as someone broken or in need of pity, but as a human being with potential, dreams, and worth. She watched as he moved among the volunteers, helping without expectation, listening without judgment, and smiling without effort. The simplicity of his actions and the authenticity of his presence left a lasting impression on her. It was a small moment, but for someone like Amina, small moments could carry immense weight. That evening, as she returned home, her thoughts were filled with this new encounter. Amina felt a mixture of curiosity and hope. She realized that perhaps she didn't have to face this journey alone. Maybe someone could understand her struggles, encourage her growth, and remind her of the life she could still live. The idea was fragile, almost frightening, because she had spent so long protecting herself from disappointment and pain. Yet, the thought of possibility lingered. In the days that followed, Amina reflected deeply on her life. She began to write more in her journal, not just about despair, but also about moments of beauty and connection she still noticed. The sound of birds outside her window, the taste of her mother's cooking, the brief but meaningful smiles from neighbors. She understood that life had changed, but it had not ended. There was still room for joy, for growth, and for human connection. Though the road ahead was long, and though every day would bring new struggles, Amina began to feel a subtle shift inside her. The despair that had weighed so heavily was now mixed with curiosity, courage, and the faintest glimmer of hope. She didn't yet know how her life would change, or how someone from the countryside would play a role in rewriting her destiny, but she was beginning to believe that change, real, meaningful change, was possible. Life for Amina continued with its daily rhythm of struggle, small victories, and quiet reflection, but there was now something new in the air, a gentle sense of curiosity that she had not felt for months. It began with the memory of Hassan, the kind man she had met at the community event. She thought about the way he moved among people, helping without being asked, the calm patience in his gestures, and the warm smile that never seemed forced. Unlike others who had approached her in the past, he had looked at her not as someone broken or helpless, but as a person worth noticing. Amina found herself waiting for another chance to see him, even though she barely understood why. Perhaps it was hope, or perhaps it was the human desire to connect, to feel seen and understood. When she learned that Hassan volunteered regularly at the local center for people with disabilities, she felt a flicker of courage. Maybe she could attend, not out of expectation, but simply to be around someone who seemed genuinely kind and unjudging. The first time Amina went back to the center, she felt nervous. She hadn't been around many people since the accident, and the idea of being in a social setting again filled her with both excitement and anxiety. Her parents encouraged her gently, helping her prepare and reminding her that the first step was always the hardest. With her wheelchair carefully positioned and her hands gripping the wheels tightly, she entered the center. Hassan was there, arranging chairs for a small workshop. He noticed Amina immediately, but his recognition was subtle. A smile, a nod, a warm hello, as if meeting her again was the most natural thing in the world. Amina felt her heart skip a beat. There was no pity, no awkwardness, only genuine acknowledgement. For the first time in a long while, she felt safe in someone's presence. Their first conversations were small and simple. Hassan asked about her interests, her hobbies, and her favorite books. Amina responded hesitantly at first, unsure how much to reveal. But his patience made her feel comfortable. He never rushed her, never insisted, and never looked at her as though she were fragile. His attention was steady and calm, like a quiet river that did not demand anything in return. Amina found herself opening up more than she had in months, talking about the struggles she faced, the moments of despair, and even the little sparks of hope that she had felt. Hassan listened. That was what mattered most. He did not try to fix her immediately, nor did he offer empty words of encouragement. He simply listened, understood, and acknowledged her feelings. He shared stories from his own life, tales of growing up in the countryside, the responsibilities he had shouldered from a young age, and the challenges he had faced with courage and patience. In those stories, Amina recognized a shared understanding of struggle and resilience. She felt less alone, and the walls she had built around herself began to crumble. Over the next few weeks, Hassan became a steady presence in Amina's life. He would visit regularly at the center, always taking time to check on her progress, offering guidance during therapy exercises, or simply talking about ordinary life. Slowly, Amina began to participate in activities she had once avoided. She tried painting, joined a small discussion group, and even helped organize minor events at the center. Each action was a small victory, but the victories mattered because they reminded her that life could still hold meaning and joy. Hassan encouraged her in gentle ways. When she expressed frustration over exercises that seemed impossible, he would suggest breaking the challenge into smaller steps. "One small step at a time," he would say, smiling. "Even a tiny effort matters." His words were simple, but they resonated deeply. Amina began to understand that recovery was not just about her body. It was about her mind, her patience, and her willingness to keep trying, even when success felt distant. One day, Hassan invited Amina to join a small outing to a nearby park. At first, she hesitated. Leaving the familiar walls of her home and the comfort of her routine felt frightening. But something in Hassan's calm encouragement convinced her to try. She wheeled herself along the paved path, her heart beating with nervous anticipation. The sun shone warmly, the birds sang, and the leaves rustled gently in the breeze. For the first time in months, Amina felt connected to the world outside her room. The experience was simple, yet it brought a profound sense of joy, a reminder that life, even with limitations, could still be beautiful. During these outings, Hassan taught Amina to focus on small pleasures and victories. He encouraged her to notice the colors of flowers, the patterns of clouds, and the simple warmth of the sun. "Life gives us these moments," he said. "We cannot control everything, but we can choose to appreciate what we can see, feel, and touch." Amina began to see life differently. Instead of focusing solely on what she had lost, she started noticing what she could still experience. Each small moment became a source of strength and hope. Hassan also helped Amina rebuild her confidence. He encouraged her to participate in workshops at the center, to share her thoughts and ideas, and to speak openly about her feelings. At first, she was hesitant, fearing judgment or failure, but Hassan's belief in her abilities was unwavering. "You are stronger than you think," he said once. "Your body may have limits, but your mind and heart do not." Slowly, Amina began to take small risks, and with each success, her confidence grew. Over time, their connection deepened, not in a romantic way initially, but as a genuine bond built on trust, understanding, and respect. Amina felt comfortable expressing her fears, hopes, and dreams. Hassan responded with empathy, sharing advice without pressure, and providing support without judgment. Their relationship became a source of stability in her life, a reminder that even in moments of despair, human kindness and understanding could bring light. Through this connection, Amina began to set small personal goals. She wanted to improve her mobility, strengthen her upper body, and participate more fully in social activities. She also dreamed of returning to her studies and continuing the work she had set aside after the accident. Hassan guided her gently, helping her break larger challenges into smaller, manageable steps. Each achievement, no matter how small, became a milestone, reinforcing the idea that progress was possible. The transformation was not instant. There were still moments of frustration, tears, and doubt. Some days Amina felt exhausted, her body unwilling to cooperate, her mind heavy with discouragement. But Hassan's presence reminded her that setbacks were not failures, they were part of the journey. "Every struggle teaches us something," he said. "Even when it feels impossible, keep going. You are not alone." His words became a mantra for Amina, a reminder that resilience was not about perfection, but persistence. Gradually, Amina began to notice changes not just in her body, but in her spirit. She laughed more freely, engaged with friends and volunteers, and started to see possibilities in her life that she had thought were gone forever. She felt the spark of independence reigniting, not the independence she had before, but a new kind of strength shaped by experience, patience, and perseverance. By the end of this phase, Amina realized that Hassan had not only introduced her to a new perspective, but had also helped her rediscover herself. She was no longer just a person confined to a wheelchair. She was someone learning, growing, and adapting. Her world had expanded beyond fear and despair to include hope, courage, and meaningful connection. She understood that her life was still hers to shape, and that while the journey ahead would be challenging, she now had the tools and support to navigate it. Most importantly, Amina began to believe that destiny was not fixed. While the accident had changed her life in unimaginable ways, it had not destroyed it. The kindness of a stranger from the countryside, his patience, and unwavering belief in her potential had shown her that new paths, new joys, and new possibilities were still possible. She had found not only support, but inspiration, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, human connection could illuminate a path forward. And so, Amina's journey of transformation truly began. With Hassan by her side, she took her first steps, metaphorically and emotionally, toward reclaiming her life. Each day brought new lessons, small victories, and the quiet reassurance that life could be rewritten, one moment at a time. She was learning to hope again, to trust again, and to embrace the possibility that even a life changed forever could still be full of beauty, purpose, and unexpected joy. Life for Amina was beginning to change, but the journey was far from easy. Even though she had found hope and encouragement with Hassan, reality still presented challenges that tested her patience, courage, and determination. Every day was a mixture of progress and setbacks, small victories shadowed by moments of frustration. She had learned that healing, whether physical or emotional, was never a straight path. One morning, Amina woke up feeling particularly heavy. Her arms were sore from exercises, her back ached, and her spirit felt low. She glanced at the wheelchair beside her bed and thought about how much her life had shifted in the past months. Despite her progress, the simple act of moving independently still required effort and strategy. She missed the days when walking was effortless, when she could run, dance, or explore the city without thinking twice. Those memories, once comforting, now reminded her of what she had lost. Hassan arrived that afternoon, as he did regularly, with a warm smile and a sense of calm that seemed to settle over her like sunlight breaking through clouds. He greeted her without judgment or pity, simply noticing her struggle and acknowledging it. "Some days are harder than others," he said softly, "but each effort counts, even when it doesn't feel like it." His words were simple, yet they carried a depth that reminded her she was not alone in her journey. They began their therapy session together. Hassan encouraged her to attempt movements she had been avoiding for weeks, stretching her legs, lifting small weights, and pushing herself a little further in the wheelchair than she had before. At first, Amina hesitated. Fear of failure, of pain, and of disappointment gripped her. But Hassan's steady presence, gentle encouragement, and calm reassurance gave her courage. Slowly, cautiously, she began. The first attempts were difficult. Her legs resisted movement, her arms trembled, and her body protested. Tears blurred her vision, not just from physical strain, but from the frustration of realizing how much her life had changed. She wanted to give up, to retreat back into the safety of her room, but Hassan remained patient. "Take a breath. Start again. It's okay to struggle," he said. His voice never rushed her, never pressured her. It was exactly the support she needed to push through. Days turned into weeks, and the small exercises began to accumulate into real progress. Amina's arms grew stronger, her stamina improved, and her confidence slowly returned. She began to notice the power of persistence, the idea that even tiny steps forward could create meaningful change over time. Each achievement, no matter how small, felt monumental. She realized that growth was not about perfection, but about showing up, trying again, and refusing to surrender to despair. Yet the journey was not without setbacks. There were days when her body refused to cooperate, when pain overwhelmed effort, and when discouragement threatened to erase months of progress. On such days, Amina often felt tears of frustration welling up, wondering if she would ever regain the independence she once had. But Hassan was always there, reminding her gently that setbacks were a natural part of the process. "Even a step back is part of moving forward," he said. "Your strength is measured not just by success, but by persistence." Amina also began to explore her emotional recovery during this time. She had spent months isolated, struggling with self-doubt and fear. Hassan encouraged her to express her emotions, to talk about moments of despair and moments of hope alike. She shared her fears of never achieving her dreams, of losing friends who could not understand her new life, and of never feeling free again. Hassan listened without judgment and offered gentle insights, helping her see that emotional strength was as important as physical strength. Through their conversations, Amina began to recognize the value of perspective. She realized that her life had not ended, it had transformed. While she could not walk as she once did, she could still engage with the world, build meaningful connections, and pursue passions in new ways. She began to dream again, not of returning to her old life exactly, but of creating a life that was hers in every sense, adapted, resilient, and full of possibility. One of the breakthroughs came unexpectedly. Hassan suggested she try painting again, something she had enjoyed before the accident but had abandoned because of her limited mobility. Amina hesitated, fearing that her inability to sit comfortably or hold brushes properly would ruin the experience. Hassan encouraged her patiently, arranging the materials and adjusting them to her reach. When she began painting, she felt a rush of emotion, frustration at first, then surprise, and finally a sense of pride. The colors on the canvas were not perfect, but they were hers, created by her effort and creativity. That moment reminded her that beauty could emerge even from limitation. Another turning point occurred when Hassan suggested a small challenge outside her comfort zone. He encouraged Amina to join a group discussion at the community center, sharing her story and perspective with others. At first, the idea terrified her. Speaking in front of people, exposing her vulnerabilities, it was daunting. But Hassan's quiet confidence and belief in her gave her courage. She agreed, and when she spoke, even briefly, she realized that her voice mattered. Others listened, appreciated her insight, and valued her presence. The experience boosted her self-esteem and reminded her that connection with others could be a source of strength. Hassan's support also extended to practical aspects of life. He helped her navigate accessibility challenges in public spaces, taught her techniques for daily independence, and encouraged her to explore creative solutions to obstacles. Slowly, Amina became more self-reliant, realizing that while her body had limitations, her mind could find ways to work around them. Each new skill, each new strategy reinforced her belief in her own capabilities. Through these efforts, Amina began to dream bigger. She set goals for herself that once seemed impossible, returning to her studies, learning new skills, participating in social activities, and even traveling short distances independently. With Hassan's guidance, she learned to break these goals into manageable steps, celebrating each small achievement along the way. Progress was slow, but every day brought new victories, new hope, and new confidence. Emotionally, Amina felt a transformation within herself. The despair and hopelessness that had dominated her life were gradually replaced with determination, courage, and patience. She understood that her journey would never be without challenges, but she now had the tools and mindset to face them. Hassan had shown her the power of human kindness, persistence, and unwavering belief in someone's potential. He had become more than a helper. He was a teacher, a guide, and a friend who had helped her rediscover the strength she had almost forgotten. One evening, as they sat in the garden after a long day of exercises and conversation, Amina looked at Hassan and felt a deep sense of gratitude. "I don't think I could have done this without you," she said softly. Hassan smiled, shaking his head gently. "It's not just me," he replied. "You've done this yourself. I only helped you see what you were capable of." She realized then that true transformation came from within, guided by support, patience, and belief, but ultimately fueled by her own courage and determination. By the end of this period, Amina had achieved milestones that once felt impossible. She could maneuver her wheelchair independently over longer distances, manage daily tasks with minimal assistance, participate actively in social and creative activities, and engage confidently in conversations. But more importantly, she had reclaimed something deeper, her sense of self, her belief in her abilities, and her hope for the future. Amina understood now that life had not ended with her accident. It had merely taken a new shape. The journey was ongoing, filled with challenges, setbacks, and triumphs, but she no longer faced it with fear or despair. She had learned that strength was not just physical, it was mental, emotional, and spiritual. She had discovered resilience, courage, and the importance of human connection, and she had found in Hassan a guide who helped her rediscover these qualities within herself. As she looked forward, Amina realized that her life could still be meaningful, full of joy, and filled with purpose. She had begun to rewrite her story, step by step, moment by moment. The accident had changed her body, but it had not changed her spirit. With each small breakthrough, each moment of courage, and each act of persistence, she was reclaiming her destiny. And though the road ahead would still be long and sometimes difficult, she now faced it with confidence, hope, and the knowledge that she was capable of far more than she had ever imagined. The months of struggle, patience, and small victories had slowly built Amina into someone she barely recognized at first. Not in appearance, but in spirit. Where once she had felt trapped and fragile, she now felt capable, determined, and alive in ways that even her accident could not diminish. Life had changed her, but it had also taught her lessons she would carry forever: resilience, gratitude, and the power of human connection. One crisp morning, Amina woke up with a renewed sense of purpose. She looked out of her window at the rising sun, its light spilling across the rooftops and streets. For the first time in a long while, she felt eager to face the day, not just go through the motions, but truly engage with life. Her body still had limitations, and her legs did not move as they once had, but that reality no longer defined her. She had discovered strength elsewhere, in her mind, her heart, and her will to continue despite the challenges. Hassan arrived that day as usual, carrying his quiet confidence and warm smile. He had become more than a guide or mentor. He was a steadfast presence in her life, someone whose faith in her abilities had transformed her perspective. "Good morning, Amina," he said, noticing the sparkle in her eyes. "You look ready for something new today." She smiled back, a mixture of gratitude and determination in her gaze. "I feel ready," she replied, "ready to try things I never thought I could." The day's session began with exercises, but there was a new energy in Amina's movements. Her arms were strong, her balance improved, and her coordination had become sharper. The months of therapy, patience, and practice were showing results. Yet Hassan reminded her gently that physical improvement was just one part of the journey. Strength comes from more than muscles, he said. It comes from courage, persistence, and belief in yourself. You have all of those. After exercises, Hassan suggested a new challenge, something that would test both her physical and emotional resilience. He encouraged Amina to participate in a local art exhibition, displaying the paintings she had begun creating months ago. At first, the thought terrified her. Presenting her work to the public, facing judgment, and stepping into a space she had once feared seemed overwhelming. But Hassan's calm encouragement gave her courage. "Your story and your art matter," he said. "Others can learn from your journey and you can inspire them." With careful preparation, Amina submitted her paintings to the exhibition. Each stroke on the canvas represented more than color. It symbolized struggle, growth, hope, and persistence. She remembered the early days when holding a brush was difficult, when even the smallest movements seemed impossible. Now, she could create freely, expressing emotions that words often failed to capture. Her art became a voice for her resilience and a testament to her journey. The day of the exhibition arrived. Amina navigated the gallery in her wheelchair, her heart pounding with nervous anticipation. People moved around her, admiring the artworks, exchanging conversations, and reacting to her pieces. When they stopped at her paintings, asking questions and complimenting her talent, Amina felt a rush of pride and joy. She realized that her contributions mattered. She could participate fully in the world, even with her physical limitations. For the first time, she truly felt seen, not as someone defined by her disability, but as a person with creativity, insight, and the ability to touch others' lives. Beyond the exhibition, Amina began taking steps to reclaim her independence further. With Hassan's guidance, she learned strategies to manage daily activities efficiently, from preparing meals to navigating public spaces. Each new skill was a victory, a reminder that life's limitations could be met with creativity and determination. She started attending university lectures again, participating in group discussions, and reconnecting with friends who had once drifted away. Each interaction reinforced her belief that her life was not defined by what she had lost, but by what she could still achieve. Amina also began to dream again, setting personal goals that she had thought impossible. She wanted to travel to the countryside, to experience the open fields and fresh air that Hassan often spoke about. She wished to volunteer, sharing her story with others facing challenges, inspiring them to find hope in difficult times. And she wanted to continue her education, pursuing knowledge and opportunities that would allow her to live a fulfilling life. With every goal, Hassan reminded her to break it into steps and celebrate each achievement, no matter how small. The journey was not without difficulties. There were still days of frustration, pain, and emotional exhaustion. Sometimes she felt discouraged, wondering if her efforts were enough or if her limitations would always hold her back. But each time, she reminded herself of how far she had come. She remembered the early days of despair, the moments when she felt entirely alone, and the first small victories that had begun to rebuild her confidence. Comparing her present to that darkest time, she realized she had grown stronger, braver, and more resilient than she had ever imagined. One of the most meaningful moments came when Amina traveled to Hassan's countryside village for the first time. The rolling fields, open skies, and simple beauty of the landscape were unlike anything she had experienced in the city. At first, the journey was challenging, uneven paths, long distances, and unfamiliar terrain. But with careful planning and Hassan's guidance, she managed independently in her wheelchair. She felt exhilaration at being part of a world she had only imagined, seeing life beyond her daily routines. The visit became symbolic, a proof that obstacles could be overcome and new experiences could be embraced despite limitations. During her stay, she met Hassan's family, who welcomed her warmly. Their kindness, laughter, and stories gave her a sense of belonging and connection she had not realized she had missed. She observed Hassan's life, learning from his resilience, patience, and humility, and began to apply these lessons to her own journey. The experience reminded her that life was filled with people willing to help, places to explore, and moments of joy waiting to be discovered. By this time, Amina had achieved a remarkable transformation. She could manage daily life with confidence, participate actively in her community, engage in creative pursuits, and dream of a future that was once unimaginable. She had not only regained a sense of independence, but also discovered her own strength, determination, and capacity to inspire others. Her life had been rewritten, not as she had planned before the accident, but in a new form that was just as meaningful, perhaps even more profound. Hassan's role remained central, but it had shifted from guide to companion. Their bond, built on trust, respect, and shared experiences, had grown into a deep friendship. They celebrated each milestone together, laughed at small triumphs, and supported each other through challenges. Amina realized that human connection was a powerful force, capable of transforming despair into hope and struggle into growth. She felt gratitude every day, not only for Hassan, but for the lessons she had learned, the resilience she had discovered, and the life she had reclaimed. In the end, Amina understood that destiny was not fixed. The accident had altered her path, but it had not destroyed her. It had introduced challenges that tested her courage, but it had also introduced people, experiences, and opportunities she would never have known otherwise. Life, she realized, was not about avoiding struggle, but about embracing it, learning from it, and growing stronger because of it. Standing in the garden one evening, watching the sunset, Amina reflected on her journey. She had moved from despair to hope, from limitation to possibility, from isolation to connection. Every challenge she faced, every small victory she celebrated, had shaped her into someone resilient, capable, and full of life. She smiled, feeling a sense of peace and empowerment she had never known before. Her story had become one of triumph, not in spite of her struggles, but because of them. The accident had changed her body, but it had also revealed her strength, her courage, and her capacity to embrace life fully. With Hassan's support, the kindness of others, and her own determination, she had rewritten her destiny. She could still dream, still create, still experience joy, and still inspire others through her journey. And so, Amina moved forward, not as someone defined by her past, her limitations, or her struggles, but as a person who had learned to live with courage, hope, and the unwavering belief that life could always offer new beginnings. She had discovered that even when life seems unfair, there is always a path to rediscovery, growth, and happiness. With every day that passed, she continued to embrace her life fully, knowing that her destiny was hers to shape, and that she was capable of far more than she had ever imagined.